So we shouldn't be looking for a leader. We shouldn't be looking and saying, okay, let's follow Afua, or let's follow John Barnes, or let's follow Akala, let's follow this person. No, you have to be united within yourself first. And that's the reason why, as we were saying earlier, the only way the system continues is if you're confused about yourself and confused about where you're from. So before you unite with anyone, guess what you need to do? Get knowledge of self and knowledge of where you're from. That is it. Before you unite and say, hey, let's march, or let's do this, or let's come together. Before you come together with another individual, look in the mirror and get knowledge of self first and knowledge of where you're from. That is the first step. But we want to take steps forward and say, oh, let's unite and look how many of us there are, and let's come together and let's move to Africa and do all these things. First things first, we have to have knowledge of self, yeah? Because they know us. They know us. We don't know ourselves. They study us. We don't study ourselves. And again, when it comes to what gets them angry, you know, the primal urge and all that sort of stuff, what really brings out the truth in them, nothing in the last year has got the white supremacists more angry than this.
Because she's from a mixed race. Because she's from a mixed race family herself, we might have the first black baby.
Yes.
That Buckingham Palace has ever seen.
And why
which
not?
would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It'll unite the country.
Yeah. But can I
British
say, first
people
of all,
in this country are all colours.
Being Jamaican, having been brought up in Jamaica, which is a multiracial society, I'm very sorry, the baby's not going to be black. The baby's going to have black blood, but it's also going to have white blood.
Okay.
You can't be 7/8 white and called black. I think that's racism of the highest order.
Really? That's interesting.
Well, that's rather like Hitler's definition of a Jew. I'm sorry, if you're 1/8 Jewish, you're completely Jewish and therefore into the ovens. And I'm sorry, if you are partly black, you're partly black. You're not fully black.
That is an interesting observation to make at 8:10 in the morning.
It's accurate as well.
Well, I think it'll be a wonderful baby.
I think we can all hopefully agree it's going to be a wonderful...
Therefore, into the ovens. And I'm sorry, if you are partly black, you're partly black. You're not fully black.
That is an interesting observation to make at 8:10 in the morning.
Off code, look how many statements there were. You know when you're off code, when they're making statements.
I think we agree it's going to be a wonderful...
But this has got them angry. Because again, it's not more so about colour, it's about genetics. It's about bloodline and that sort of stuff. So Meghan Markle, you're messing up the bloodline. You're messing up the genetics, yeah? Now, it's very rare that you'll get white supremacists telling the truth. Again, get them angry or very, very comfortable and they tell the truth, yeah? But it's very rare that you catch them on TV telling you the truth. However, when you do, you need to listen, because who are the experts? They are the experts. So anytime you hear a white supremacist talk, you need to listen, because they are the experts. This is David Duke, the KKK leader. He's been around for a very long time. Very, very long time. Since the 1970s. Listen to what he said. And this was like a public cry to the white race.
The Associated Press just reported that whites are now a minority of those being born in America. European American babies are less than 5 out of every 10 babies born and are projected to be less than 1 out of 10 births in just a few decades. This differential in birth rates means that unless a political sea change occurs, white Americans will ultimately be not only a minority in the nation that our people founded, but a tiny minority, well on its way to political and physical obliteration by the end of this century. White babies are now part of an endangered species. As a very young man, 40 years ago, I was scorned when I warned America that we would become a minority in our own country. As recently as the 1960s, whites were still 90% of America's population. We're not even allowed to continue our existence as only 1/10 of the Earth's people. Genocide is the destruction or wiping away of any race or any people from the earth, and we are being wiped away.
So look at that. Again, anytime a white, and he's self-proclaimed, so I can call him a white supremacist because he calls himself one. Yeah? Remember, you can't call any white person a white supremacist unless they call themselves it, or you get another white person too.
Does that go along with, you know, the reason why there is white supremacy racism, as well as joy, all those things?
Yeah.
Survival.
Yeah, well that's what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing talks about. So her thing is all about genetics and survival, and they fear the black man because the black man could annihilate them through just his sperm. So there is that as well. So that's Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's sort of thing with regards to genetics, yeah? But again, it's very rare that they tell the truth. So when they do, we need to listen because they are the experts. Here's another one, self-proclaimed. Listen to what he says.
Europeans have probably, on a per capita basis, killed more than anybody else, but because they were technologically more advanced.
Where does gunpowder come from? It comes from China. It's just that Western civilization took things from people. And I think when you get to older civilizations, they become more benevolent. They don't hang on to things like genetics as much. They understand how experience changes you.
Base them on facts instead. That's essential.
Well, what I find interesting is you're so into facts and you're so into science, but then you supported Donald Trump, right?
Well, that's a whole different question. That's a whole different subject. Let's get back to...
But I want to know how it is you voted for Donald Trump when you're so into facts, because his entire campaign is not based in facts. It was all based in propaganda and emotion.
I voted for Donald Trump for one reason only. His policies, if implemented, would slow the dispossession of whites in the United States.
See that? Again, when they talk, we need to listen because who are the experts? They are.
Who is he?
Sorry?
Who is he?
I've forgotten his name, but I'll get it to you by the end. So when they talk, we need to listen because they are the experts. And again, I've only seen it in two ways. When they're super comfortable or they're super angry, the truth comes out. Now I'm going to show you another one. Now this guy is a mixed race guy. He's talking to a suspected white supremacist. But the white supremacist is being very open and honest with him. Maybe because he's comfortable, I don't know. But just check out this exchange. And again, listen to the expert. Remember who the expert is. Listen to this.
Is your group a white supremacist group?
I don't like that term. It's not about being supreme or anything. That's why I don't like the term racist or anything like that. Because I don't think it's about hating anybody either.
Yeah.
It's just about standing up for your own. The colored people, the blacks, the non-whites, they will unite to face us, to see our demise, to see our destruction as a people. This is not a hobby. This is the blood of our people, the future of our race, our children.
How you doing, mate?
How you doing?
I'm Jamali.
Jeff.
Nice to meet you, Jeff. How you doing, brother?
Good, how are you?
I'm alright. How you keeping?
All right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No complaints. Whereabouts is the headquarters for NSM?
We're based in Detroit.
Why Detroit in particular?
Detroit has been hit harder economically than probably any other city in this country. So this is a good area for us because anytime when the economy is in distress, when a system is in distress, in a situation like that, people are looking for answers.
Can you tell me what the criteria to join in your organization?
You just have to be white, basically.
And then you accept them into your organization?
We don't accept homosexuals, and we don't accept Judaism. That would not be accepted.
No Judaism?
No Judaism. And we feel it's a vile practice.
I see. As a white nationalist, doesn't it bother you seeing multiculturalism?
I prefer not to. I prefer not to.
What do you think about people who are birth and race mixing?
I think a lot of those people have a little bit of an identity crisis because I think it messes with them mentally.
Do you think that's like the worst mix, is to be black and white?
I think it might be the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like if push comes to shove, you have potential to be violent?
We'll remain legal until we have no other option. If a race war breaks out in this country, then we'll do what we have to do to defend our people to the extreme. If it's an all-out war, I mean, war is war. War is brutal. So we don't want to see a race war because it's going to be a bloody mess. You have to use the restroom.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
You have to use the restroom.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What was he saying that was untrue? He said it's not about hating anybody. It's about standing up for your own. Yeah? Ain't that the same as saying pro-black doesn't mean anti-white? It's the same thing. This is what we got to stop being confused about the system. The guy's like, wow, oh my gosh. I'm like, what did he say?
Surely the difference is violence.
Of course.
Those beliefs in the police force.
Of course, but let's just go by what, again, let's not, you're creating confusion. Let's go by what he said, because we don't know who he's killed and who he hasn't killed. Remember, we can't make statements. Let's just go by what he said. He said, it's about the future of his own race. Shouldn't we be about the future of our own race?
Yes.
He said, people from a mixed race background have a little bit of an identity crisis. In a system of white supremacy, wouldn't you have a little bit of an identity crisis? And then he said he would protect his children by any means necessary, even if it means getting violent. Isn't that what we should be doing? This is why we need to listen when they speak. The truth came out. There was nothing that he said that I was like, wow. I was listening to him like, that makes sense. This is what we should be doing. If anything, when they talk to us, that's how we should be sounding. Would you get violent? Boy, to protect my children, if push comes to shove, that's basically what Malcolm X was saying. You don't believe in violence, but if push comes to shove, protect my children. Everything he was saying was making sense. But again, we don't have a code. They have a code. To the point where in America, when it comes to the police force, I don't know how they do it, but they all have the same code. Do they not? Repeat after me. I thought he had a gun. He reached for his waistband. I feared for my life. These three phases will ensure that you can kill anyone you want and no jury will convict you. They all have a code. They follow a code. And that's an extreme example. But every time they're talking to us, they follow a code. And the main thing is, they stay in question mode and you are the quote-unquote expert. Like this. So, when we watch this, who do we think the expert is? Who are the experts? These people. According to the code. According to the code, there is no expert in this except the white people who practice the system of white supremacy. Now just listen to how, he's one of the best at staying on code. Just listen to how he stays on code with a car.
I've got a point about London, sorry. In the last 2 years, it's still important to remember that the overwhelming majority of murders have not been committed by teenage black boys. So, for example, in 2017, there were 117 or 16 murders, 21 of which were of teenage black boys. In 2018, there were 134. 24 were of teenagers in general. So it's also important
the stats can be twisted any way you like. However, let me throw this back at you. Notwithstanding all that, and I think it's fascinating what you've been saying. I think it's fascinating what you've been saying. Carla, we could talk to you a lot more about this. It's fascinating.
What is it with that word?
Giving us a very good insight.
The perception we have over different groups generally.
Fascinating to talk to you this morning. Fascinating to talk to you this morning. Fascinating to talk to you this morning.
Yeah. Notwithstanding all that, and I think it's fascinating what you've been saying. I think it's fascinating what you've been saying. Carla, we could talk to you a lot more about this. It's fascinating. I appreciate you coming on.
Very strange people, these white supremacists. Say one thing, do another. What does that cause? Confusion. And everybody that they have conquered, and they have conquered everybody of color, they have done it through the science, the art, the whatever you want to call it, of mastering the way to confuse people. They'll dazzle you with footwork. They'll dazzle you with magic words of all types. They'll dazzle you with magic words of all types. They'll dazzle you with magic words of all types.
and I think it's fascinating what you've been saying. I think it's fascinating what you've been saying. Carla, we can talk to you a lot more about this. It's fascinating.
What is it with that word? What is it? There's something magical that they love to use.
It should be taken seriously, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Fascinating. Again, that word. Now, Carla broke down the myth of black on black crime. If you watch this, he broke down the statistics and made sure that peers knew that it's not black and black crime. Glasgow and all that sort of stuff, and even to this day, there's more violent knife crime outside of London than there is in. However, Piers Morgan is on code. He doesn't come off a code. So even though he hears what Akala's saying, he says, yeah, despite all of that, let me throw it back at you and then ask him another question pertaining to black on black crime. In other words, stay on code. This is something we need to learn. We need to stay on code. Whatever code you're following, you need to stay on it. Watch the way Piers Morgan stays on code with everyone that he talks to with regards to black on black crime. Literally the same script. Listen to this. On code with regards to black on black crime, which is a myth. But he, just like Hitler says, you keep on saying the same thing over and over again, the lie becomes the truth. Listen.
Statistically, it looks like in London right now, this is predominantly a problem of young black teenage boys who are members almost exclusively of gangs attacking each other, so that the perpetrators and the victims appear to be almost exclusively young black men. The knife crime epidemic in London in particular at the moment is largely driven by young black youths. Nobody's disputing that, right? You wouldn't dispute that?
Yeah, because so often you get the innocent young black boy that gets stopped by the police and gets frustrated, and we've all seen them on social media where they end up getting arrested because they can't control their anger because, you know, they're trying to say that they're innocent, and then they end up getting in trouble. And then that's how that relationship with the police breaks down.
But if, like in London, it is an indisputable fact that the vast majority of victims of this knife crisis are young black men, and the vast majority of the people perpetrating it and doing the killing are young black men. It's just a statistical fact, right?
I'm not denying that it's not a problem in the black community.
When you see what's going on now, right? And in London, it's predominantly young black teenage boys attacking other young black teenage boys, right? That's it in London.
He was like, no, it's not. I take knives off the streets. It's white guys that give me the knives. Watch how he stays on code. Back to the code.
So more white boys are handing in knives to you than black? Why is that?
So what I'm trying to say there, it's not any particular colour of a problem. It's a community problem. It's everyone's problem. Do you know what I'm saying?
And just to clarify that, statistically, purely on the statistics, in London right now, the vast majority of attackers and victims of knife murders, right, happen to be black.
That's how you stay on code. Doesn't matter what the evidence is, you stick to your code. He didn't come off his code at all, even when Akala dropped the evidence, even when this guy said, hey, I'm out there taking knives off of the streets, so there's white guys that are giving me knives. He was like, hold on, let me just clarify. Statistically, it's young black, and he kept on pointing to him like you, it's people like you. That's how you stay on code. It doesn't even matter what the truth is. If anything, they follow this code. That's their code. I don't know why I had to say so. Yeah? That's how they stay on code. And again, it's about being in the question mode. So whoever they're talking to, we're going to make you feel like you're the expert, even though I'm the expert. Yeah? So this, does anyone know who this is? Owen Jones. He's talking to Akala. Akala's dropping the knowledge when it comes to knife crime and the black on black myth. He's breaking it down. And just listen to what, Owen Jones says.
If we come to current kind of hot topic, knife crime, the idea of black on black violence is rooted in this 19th century pseudoscientific gene-based racism. Black people are genetically violent, so it actually doesn't make a difference whether they're well educated or not, whether they're a Premier League footballer or a corner street drug dealer. It doesn't make any difference whether they're David Adjaye or Oswald Boateng or they're the guy who's actually out there killing people. It doesn't make any difference whether they're 16 or 46. Doesn't make any difference. I mean, if we're going to go with biology, my grandmother should be twice as likely to be violent than me because she's twice as black. The black on black violence narrative is literally rooted in that history of empire, in that sort of inherited historical guilt, in that fear, and in the sense that black people are just irredeemable. The violence in Glasgow or Belfast or Liverpool needs explaining via whether it's sectarian history or political conflict or class. When white people are violent, it needs explaining. Even when a middle-class white American kid kills half of his school, it needs explaining. When what is really a tiny fraction of black kids in London, as inexcusable as behaviour is, participate in violent crime, even when they have one white parent and one black parent like I do. It's black on black violence and therefore needs no explaining because, of course, blackness is a perfectly sufficient explanation.
I think if people like Akala were listened to more and were, I would say, in positions of power, this country would be a completely different place. I think that was, for me, absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating.
This country would be a completely different place. I think that was, for me, absolutely fascinating.
What?
Fascinating.
What? Fascinating. What is it with this word, fascinating? What is it with the word fascinating? Because when you think about it, is it fascinating though? Because look at the synonyms. If we looked at the synonyms of fascinating, fascinating is synonymous with alluring, charming, delightful, enchanting, seductive. Hold on a second. Seductive. So when they say, you know, that person's fascinating. Now remember, every time they say it, they're talking to someone like John Barnes or Carla or someone else who's talking about this vile system. This vile system that's killing black people all over the world. Yeah? There's nothing fascinating about this system. There's nothing alluring or enticing or seductive about this system. And again, the more you live in an abnormal environment, the more you start to think it's normal. I think this system is vile. I think no human being should have to live through a system like this. And I think the system was created by non-human beings. You could call them, you can't call them a human being because to be a human, you'd have to show some humanity. You know, humane. This is not a humane system. So this wasn't created by a human, it was created by mankind. Mankind, a kind of man, yeah, that created this type of system. Because you can't call them human. Human means to be humane. You have to be humane. There's nothing humane about it. But the more you live in an abnormal environment, the more you start to think it's normal. So the fact that I think this is vile, if I start talking about a vile system, yeah, this system is vile, blah, 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 and I'm talking to you, and you turn around and say, that's fascinating. That's an inappropriate word to use for the vile system that we're talking about. Think about if we were talking about paedophilia. So I'm talking about, let's say we lived in a system where there was an environment where there was loads of paedophiles everywhere. Oh my gosh, there's these 50-year-old men, balding men, overweight men, and they're molesting all of our children. The 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, children are getting raped and killed all over. And you're going to turn around to me and say, that's fascinating, that's sick. Fascinating is to do with seduction, ravishing, gripping, glamorous. In other words, fascinating is kind of synonymous with a word, hold on, because this causes us lots and lots of pain, yeah? Fascinating seems to be, you know, associated with pleasure. Pleasure. So in other words, the system that we find extremely painful, they find it pleasurable. That's fascinating. Wow, that's fascinating. Ain't that fascinating? This is fascinating. This is fascinating, is it not? They find this stuff pleasurable. They know it's working, exactly. And they know they're not suffering from it. So when we speak, fascinating, that's like, so, you know when someone's talking to you and you're not interested at all, but to appease them you say what? Wow, that's really interesting. So it's like a patronizing word as well. Like, it's fascinating, that's fascinating, really. And you guys have it that bad. Wow, and black people are getting killed in the street, like knife crime. Wow, that's fascinating. That's the total opposite of the word that they should be using. Yeah? Fascinating, but that's one of their magical words. So for them, the system that we find extremely painful, they find pleasurable. And because remember, Neely Fuller says they do it for fun, glory, and material gain. So they find the system fun. It's pleasurable for them. So they seem to do things like when they're on code, send out little code messages to each other, which is fun. So when they say fascinated, I'm sure some white supremacists are sitting at home laughing like, he said it again, bro. That's fascinating. Look at his face. They really think we're fascinated. Yeah, keep on going. It's a code. And they do it all the time. Now I'm going to play you something. We have to finish up. I'm going to play you something. And it's going to be low, so you have to listen very carefully. But they like to do these little codes. Because again, fun, glory, and material gain. They like to play these games where they send messages to each other through their codification. Did anyone notice this? And I apologize because it is going to be low. But watch this.
Season, the Christmas shopping season is well underway. We've just had Black Friday a few days ago.
We just had Black Friday.
She realised.
She goes, oh my gosh, yeah? But look at his face when he does it.
Yeah.
He points to her and says, we just had Black Friday. And then he goes like this, like to say, oh my gosh, I did it. Like it was a joke, like it was a little message to other white supremacists. I told you I was going to do it. I said to you I was going to do it on live TV. Watch his face after he does it. It's like he wants to crack up.
Yeah. Season, the Christmas shopping season is well underway. We've just had Black Friday a few days ago.
Wow. But we don't understand code, so we don't see things like that. Yeah? They do things like that. That little, you know, pointing to us and all that sort of stuff. That's a little code. Again, I'm not an expert, so I don't know what that code means. But now you're starting to understand what they do. Now, from understanding that, for the people who didn't get the first advert that I showed, you'll understand this. So remember what he did. Now watch this, and it will make total sense to you.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from...
Did you get the nappies?
The nappies. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge.
Did you get the nappies?
The nappies.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Now you see it straight away.
Oh my God.
This is why we need our own code.
Absolutely.
We need our own code, yeah? Where we can talk and they don't understand it. We can have a code and they don't understand it. And you know what's crazy? We have one. It's our culture. But we give away our culture. We let people know what our culture is. For example, watch this. Now, this is grime culture. There's a couple young people here. You might be able to tell me what this guy's saying. This is code. You tell me what he's saying in this clip.
Best be on your best behavior. If I have to spend my savings, only the savior can save you. Yeah, I'm larger than your average. I pay the striker's salary. I'll put bread on my beef. Call that a rich boy sandwich. Heavyweight putting on calories. I pay the striker's salary. I'll put bread on my beef. Call that a rich boy sandwich. You ain't got ham, you're a has-been. You ain't got ham, you're a has-been. I'll put bread on my beef. I'll put bread on my beef. Put your money where your mouth is. Come put your money where your mouth is. I'll get bread on the street, so I can put bread on my beef.
Now, what's he saying there? He's saying he puts bread on his beef. What's he talking about? Because he's not talking about food.
His family.
He says what?
Is it about his family? No.
Bread. What does bread mean? Money. What does beef mean?
Put money on his head.
Put money on his head. Yeah. Beef. So when he says I put bread on my beef, what's he saying? He's gonna pay someone to deal with his beef. In other words, if you got beef with me, I'm not even gonna touch you, fam. I'm gonna put bread on my beef. And he says, call it a rich boy sandwich because it's gonna cost a lot of money. Call it a rich boy sandwich. Again, he's not talking about food. So we have our own code. Again, we don't understand how powerful this code is, but this is just an example. This is just grime, but we do it in all types of music. We have our code when it comes to R&B music, hip hop music. Whatever we're talking about, we have a code. He says, I pay the striker's salary. He weren't talking about football. He says, I paid a striker's salary. I put bread on my beef. And then he turned around and says, call it a rich boy sandwich, heavyweight putting on calories. He's not talking about his weight. He's talking about the fact that he pays a lot of sandwiches. He pays a lot of strikers. This is code. But you're not going to understand it if you're not from this culture. So young people, they'll listen to this, they understand it. Yeah? Now this is a negative code. Obviously, he's talking about killing other black people. But this just shows you that we can have a code. It's not hard. We can have a code, even in hip-hop.
I talk in cryptic code. Some people, it goes right over their heads. A lot of time I'm in there with Ye and he's like, man, what does that mean? To other people in the street, it's like, oh my God, he's speaking a language. He's speaking directly to me. If you're in touch and in tune with the life, then it's gonna mean the world to you. So if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. This is hip-hop. So that was a hip-hop artist, Pusha T. He said, I talk with cryptic code. He says even when he's in the studio with Kanye West, who's producing his records, sometimes Kanye will turn around to him and say, hey man, what does that mean? Because Kanye is a bit removed from the streets now. Yeah? So he has to explain to Kanye the code. So black people, we have a code. It's just that we don't utilize it for what we should be utilizing it for. And again, we're being studied. We don't study other people. We don't study ourselves. Hence the reason why none of us really know anything about melanin. Not our own fault, but we're not being taught it, so we don't know where to go to study it and that sort of stuff. We don't study our own history, so we're confused about that. And we don't study them. They study us. We don't study them. Yeah? So when it comes to this, they understand how powerful this stuff is. So they're constantly trying to understand our own culture. But remember what Neely Fuller said. They have two ways of controlling us, direct and indirect violence. So first of all would be direct. Now when we started to bring out this culture, whatever you want to call it, London culture or grime culture, they went for direct violence first. But remember, you go direct and then that stops working, you start to become indirect. What happened when we first started to use this language that they didn't understand? What did they do? This is what they did.
School here in London has banned its students from using certain slang words.
A new clampdown on slang. Harris Academy in Croydon has banned words like cos and innit in an effort to improve standards of English.
These are not terms that apply in the world of work.
Makes them sound stupid and uneducated.
Hang on, no, wait, you said stupid. Why does it make them sound stupid?
It's very controversial.
All right, so first is direct violence. First of all, we're going to say we're going to ban you. If you use it, you're getting in trouble. So the children, if you use these words, you're going to get in trouble. Then that backfires. Remember, racism about refinement. We have to refine it. So instead of direct violence, because we still need to understand your language, because it's the language that's the code, and the code is, you know, is what gets you to the treasure. We need to understand your code. But instead of banning it, we realized that didn't work. What are we going to do? We're going to be indirect with you. How would we be indirect with you? I don't know. Doing things like this.
Banging as in you're banging, or banging as in...
So Top Boy were asked to come on MTV and they were asked to explain slanguage.
Yeah. Banging as in you're banging, or
you're
banging as in... Leg, it's like, what would you describe leg as? I know what leg is like. Really pain. So really good, basically.
Yeah, for sure. But then, like, use it, that layman, I don't know, layman down.
Oh yeah, true. That,
you know what I'm saying? It's also
because
phrase.
Slang's changed over the years as well.
Oh,
like
tutus now. Tutus now.
Bro,
like, imagine like, so if I'm telling a story, it's like, and then imagine this, tutus now. This happened, etc.
Money.
Money, yeah. Like you're
taking
yeah, you're taking a piss. High. Style,
yeah.
Like,
leave it, like,
yeah, chill, like,
chill,
relax.
Yeah, leave it alone.
This is mad.
Obvious.
Style,
yeah.
Yeah, chill, like, relax.
Yeah, leave it alone. This is mad. Obvious.
Exactly. They're being bait right now. Who's giving away our culture like that? Yeah? But we don't understand. Yes, bro.
I think they're giving it away because what white supremacy has got, which you haven't expressed, is the fact they control the supply of money. And with that, you could influence attitudes and behavior.
All right, but what is true wealth? Ask the people who have money, what cells are they trying to get? Whose organs are they trying to get? Ask. So guess what true wealth is? What you see when you look in the mirror. Okay, so who has true wealth? We do, but we don't have knowledge of self. Right, alright, so let me finish off. Alright, so this is it. We've gone from having a culture, a code, and we just give it away now. They wanted to ban it, but now we give it away. They just ask us, tell us what that means. On fleek, what does that mean? Just tell us, because they understand the power in code, yeah? Power in culture. And I don't know if anyone's seen this, but Capital Extra, they've done this thing where they bring grime artists onto this channel with a classical musician, classically trained musician. And the classically trained musician, who's the expert, asks the grime artist about their music. Watch this. Now remember, create confusion, then act fake confused. Watch how fake confused he looks.
Looking forward to music.
Yeah, me too.
You are a rapper.
Yeah.
So as a rapper, you are a rapper within a particular genre of music?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm a particular genre, but they class me as a drill rapper.
Yeah, a drill rapper.
Yeah, drill rapper.
So what's the characteristic of the sound for like someone like me who's never really heard drill?
Ooh, well, I would just think, me personally, I don't think I do drill. I do crashment.
Yeah, crash.
Yeah, crashment.
I'm learning lots of new terms.
Yeah, crashment is like drill and bashment mixed in one.
Bashment?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's bashment?
Bashment is like Jamaican music, like Vibes Cartel.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of like got the reggae influence.
Yeah.
And then so what's added to it to make, is it crashment?
Yeah, basically I was added.
Giving it away. If you go online, they talk to all of them. Every artist, they talk to all of them. Look at this. Type in Capital Extra Music Expert, and he's there asking questions, getting the culture from everyone. Everyone. And because we don't understand the power of code, we're just giving away our culture. Remember, first they tried to ban it, and then they were like, let's just ask them what that means. So we don't, then they find out our code, and then they can utilize our code and sell it back to us for the resources or anything like that. So Neely Fuller says, if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else will only confuse you. Now listen to this, Sun Tzu, this is from The Art of War. If you know your enemy and yourself, if you know your enemy and yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, which is a lot of us, we have knowledge of self, we know, we get into black history and we want to study that, but we don't want to study them. For every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. And if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb to every battle. So what weakens it? We've talked about what strengthens it: confusion, deceit, lies. What weakens it? Well, if we go back to this, if this strengthens it, guess what weakens it? Having total clarity on who you are and where you're from. Because that clarity will lead to harmony within and without, and that will lead to peace. And if you go back to ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, peace is synonymous with ma'at, truth, justice, balance. That's what we need. Yeah. Now to finish off, because I've talked about how the system works and what strengthens it, and what we need to do as black people. We need our own code. We need to learn knowledge of self and learn about our history. That will create total clarity. And when we have total clarity, we'll understand what we need to do with all of this. Well, we may not be experts, but just simply we'll know this is the main problem that every black person should be trying to solve. So at the beginning I asked, would you allow your children to sit someone else's maths exam? And you all said no. Well, this is your children's maths exam. This is every single one of your children's maths exam. They didn't ask for these problems, but they're going to be born into a world where these problems exist. So guess what? They should be using all of their intelligence all of their knowledge, all of their power to try and solve these problems because these are their problems. Yeah? So, some people will say, because again, when we talk about white supremacy, some people can't differentiate white people and white supremacists. There is a difference. There's white supremacists, they intentionally practice this. White people who unintentionally practice this. Some people may ask the question, what can white people do to help? You might even have some friends that will ask that question. What can white people do to help? Would you like to know the answer? Nothing? Now I was going to play a clip, but it's a bit too long, so I'm just going to tell you what Neely Fuller says. Neely Fuller says that white people can do two things. The first thing that white people could do to help is to never tell anything to a black person that is false. In other words, anytime you're speaking to a black person, tell the truth. Tell the truth. And I don't even think they can do that, you know, to give them other steps. Just tell the truth. Because that alone is hard for them. And if you think that ain't hard for them, ask any white person. You see Egypt, is that in Africa? You see the ancient Egyptians, were they dark-skinned black Africans? Tell me that. It'll be hard for them to even admit that, let alone what's going on today, yeah? So first things first, don't say anything that is false to a black person. Why? Because then, if you do that, you'll create confusion. So tell the truth.
When a suspected white supremacist asks a victim of racism, quote, what should white people do to combat racism, end of quote, how should the victim of racism respond?
A victim of racism talking to a white person about how making suggestions about what a white person can do?
Yeah, this person said when a suspected white supremacist asks a victim of racism, quote, what should white people do to combat racism, end of quote. How?
Well, there's a long list of suggestions that a non-white person can make to a white person about what a white person can do that's in the code book. But since I'm not looking at it directly right now, two of the things that are right at the top of that list. First of all, never, ever say anything to a non-white person that is not true. Because a lot of white people are always asking, they're making statements rather, they're saying, black people are always marching and complaining and whining about this and whining, and they never give you any details about doing anything. They just say that we don't like the way things are. And they break windows and turn cars over and foam at the mouth and shout slogans and whatnot, but they never go into any details about what it is that they want us to do. They call us all these names, racists, white supremacists, bigots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not businesslike. They just believe in running up and down the street, throwing things and yelling and insults and calling us names. And we white people who want to help don't know what to do because they're too busy calling us names and not going into any details, not acting like they're going to sit down and do business in a sane, methodical manner to solve their problems. They just say, we don't like it the way it is, and we are racist, and blah, 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 blah. So the code approaches this, the counter-racist code, the suggestions that I make, because many times they're telling the truth about that. Back in the 1960s, some white people were asking that same question, just in that way. What do you want us to do? Name something. And they just say, well, they say, well, what do you want? See, they use that word want. And I remember in one instance, the answer was from a group of black people was, well, what do we want? What do you got? Okay, and everybody laughed. See, but it's no laughing matter. I mean, when it comes right down to when the rubber meets the road. So the first order of business, I thought about that. That's why I started putting it in the book. Oh, when they ask you a specific question, what do you want? and you want to get into specifics, say, well, now, first thing we want is don't ever say anything to a non-white person that's not true. Now, a lot of people will say, well, we want housing, we want better jobs, we want et cetera, et cetera. We can get to that later. That's on the list, too. But top of the list is don't say anything to a non-white person that's not true. Why? Why is that in the textbook for victims of white supremacy, right at the top of the list of what you say to white people when they ask, what do you people want? Why is that at the top of the list? Because white supremacy thrives on falsehood. This is the first thing they do when they get ready to mess over people, is start saying things that are not true and get people to believe it in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The white supremacists make sure that they have a whole arsenal, a whole warehouse of things that they say that are not true. Because when you fool people, you know, you got them. You know, when you got people completely dizzy, walking around, I mean, with a head full of non-truths. I mean, everything you have said to them, or most of the things you have said, have turned out not to be true at all. I mean, that person is just groggy right from the lies that they're getting, all right, the non-truths. So the first order of business, don't say anything. If you want to really help, don't say anything ever to a non-white person. If you're a white person, don't say anything ever to a non-white person that is not true. Make sure that what you are saying is absolute truth. Don't say anything ever that's not true. And number two, because I named two things. That's the first one.
And then the second one, and this is a very hard one for them to do as well. Anything that you know that is of constructive value, tell a black person. Anything that you know that is of constructive value, Neely Fuller says, make a beeline for that black person and tell them. Because that is what keeps us confused as well, not knowing certain things. So anything that you know, whether it's to do with the system or not, tell a black person. Those are the two things that white people can do.
Number two, right at the top of the list. And these two things will go a long ways. Don't say anything that's not true. And number two is don't withhold constructive information. The minute, on a job or anywhere else, the minute you get that constructive information, pass it on to a needy, a non-white person who is in need. That information, and they don't have that information, is constructive information. Don't withhold constructive information. Don't keep it to yourself. Or pass it on to other white people and skip over the non-white people. Don't do that. In fact, make it a priority to give it to the person who needs it most. And in many cases, I'll say, probably in most cases, it'll be a non-white person that needs that constructive information. Constructive information goes a long ways. Information is power. Constructive information is power all over the world. All right? So don't withhold constructive information. The white supremacists are skillful at doing that. They'll give you a whole bunch of information, but it'll be non-constructive. They'll rush to give a non-white person a whole bunch of ideas, a whole bunch of information to send them down a path that's headed for destruction. So we want constructive information, all of that constructive information, any constructive information that you have, anything that you think will wind up really helping this non-white person, give it to them immediately. Make a beeline to them deliberately and do it. Those two things will go a long ways.
So, just to finish off now, this, for those who are not aware, was part 1 of 3. Part 1 of 3. Because it's a big topic that we're talking about, the system of white supremacy. So it's part 1 of 3. However, according to Toni Morrison, if you listen to this quote, you'll find that this could have been part 1 of 33. Listen to what she says. The function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, so you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on the fact that it is. Someone says you have no art, so you dredge that up. Someone says you have no kingdom, so you dredge that up. None of that is necessary. There will always be one more thing. So this is part 1 of 3. It could have been part 1 of 33. Because whatever we talk about, there will always be one more thing. Yeah? Alright, so this is part 1 of 3. Part 2 will be next year at some point. And just so you know, in part 2, here's what we're going to be discussing.
That one's going to be fascinating.
Because remember, we can affect their feelings. That's the only thing we affect. They affect all of that, but we affect their feelings. We affect their feelings. And just to give you an example, this is just a going away present, just to give you an example of how they go straight to their feelings and they go straight into, you know, victim mode. Right, the sis right here deals with that. Watch this.
There's a lot of people that have to work on themselves. I mean, when we
there's
see
a lot of people who
havoc
sit in their cottages in their homes and don't have an experience like others and think that it's, well, you know, let me swipe my Visa card and make a donation, but I don't live this experience. What are we doing to change the current circumstances? We just had a Pope say he's not saying I'm sorry to Indigenous Canadians when he said that in 2015. It is happening right now.
I'm not saying
it's got to change. Yes, we forgive. I believe in Jesus.
But why
do
are
unto
you
others as we shall
attacking
do
me,
unto
Julie?
you.
Why are you attacking me? No, I totally get what you're saying, and I have.
Hold on, we're live right now.
utmost
Why are you attacking me?
I'm not attacking.
The truth hurts. I didn't say anything to attack you, Jeannie Becker. I said nothing about Jeannie Becker.
No, I'm just saying you're. I
Did I say
feel that
anything
you're.
about Jeannie Becker?
I just feel that you're.
Let me tell you what you just said. I feel like. So whatever you're feeling, take it to the altar, because I'm not the one that's responsible for your feelings.
My name's Leo Marshall, and that concludes.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.